Marcus Chun stared at the massive shape floating in the darkness ahead of his small ship. The orbital station hung there like a sleeping giant, its metal hull scarred and blackened from what looked like weapon burns. Most of the external lights were dead, but a few still blinked weakly, like dying stars. He had been a Marine for 12 years before becoming a salvage operator. In those 12 years, he had seen plenty of destroyed ships and stations. But this one was different. The damage patterns were wrong. Someone had tried very hard to make this station look like it died in battle. But Marcus knew better. "Computer, run a full scan on the station," he said. Leaning back in his pilot chair, the ship's computer hummed for a moment. Station designation appears to be Kepler's Rest. Hull composition shows mixed materials from human, Zephyrian, and unknown sources. No life signs detected. Reactor is offline. Estimated age of damage, 23 years. Marcus whistled softly. 23 years was a long time for a station to drift in space without anyone claiming it, especially one this big. The thing had to be at least 2 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide. That much metal and technology was worth a fortune, even as scrap. Why hasn't anyone else taken this? He wondered aloud. He had heard rumors about this station from other salvagers. They called it cursed, said that anyone who tried to board it never came back. Marcus didn't believe in curses, but he believed in being careful. That's how he had stayed alive during the war, and during his 5 years as an independent salvager. He docked his ship to one of the station's airlocks and put on his environment suit. The suit was military grade, modified with extra tools and a stronger power supply. Old habits from his Marine days. Always be prepared for the worst. The airlock cycled through, and Marcus stepped onto the station. His helmet lights cut through the darkness, showing corridors that stretched away in both directions. The artificial gravity was still working, which was good. That meant the main power core wasn't completely dead dot as he walked deeper into the station. Marcus noticed things that made him stop and think. The walls showed blast marks, but they were too precise, too clean. Someone had used shaped charges to damage specific systems while leaving others untouched. This wasn't random battle damage. This was sabotage. Definitely not pirates, he muttered, examining a melted control panel. Pirates would have stripped everything valuable and left. Someone wanted this place to look destroyed but not completely ruined. He found the main reactor chamber after an hour of exploring. It was huge, easily the size of a city block. The reactor itself was offline, but Marcus could see it wasn't damaged. Someone had simply shut it down and removed key components. Components that could be replaced if you knew what you were doing. Marcus had spent 2 years working on reactor systems during his military service. He knew exactly what he was looking at. They wanted it to look dead but stay repairable, he said to himself. Why? He set up a temporary work area in the reactor chamber and began bringing tools from his ship. If he could get the main power online, he could access the station's computer systems. That would tell him what this place really was and why someone had gone to so much trouble to fake its destruction. The work was slow and careful. Military reactors were designed to be safe, but they could still kill you if you made a mistake. Marcus worked methodically, replacing damaged components with parts from his ship's spare inventory. His hands moved with the confidence of someone who had done this many times before. As he worked, he found more evidence of deliberate sabotage. Critical components had been removed and hidden elsewhere in the station rather than destroyed. Whoever did this wanted the station to be repairable by someone with the right skills and equipment. On his second day aboard the station, Marcus got the auxiliary power system working. Emergency lighting came on throughout several sections, and basic life support systems began functioning. The air became breathable, though he kept his suit on out of habit. With auxiliary power running, He could access some of the station's computer terminals. Most were locked behind security systems he couldn't break. But he found maintenance logs and basic station information. Kepler's rest had been officially designated as a research station, jointly operated by human and Zephyrian scientists. According to the records, it had been attacked by unknown raiders and abandoned 23 years ago. Everyone had evacuated safely, and the station was written off as a total loss. But Marcus could see that wasn't true. The station's layout was all wrong for a research facility. The corridors were designed for security, with multiple checkpoints and blast doors. The communication systems were military-grade and heavily encrypted. This place had been built for secrets, not science. On his third day, Marcus made real progress with the main reactor. He had found most of the missing components hidden in various storage areas around the station. Whoever had sabotaged this place had been very careful to make sure it could be fixed by the right person. As the main reactor came online, more systems throughout the station began activating. Marcus felt a moment of satisfaction as the lights came on in the main corridor. He had always been good at fixing things. It was one of the reasons he had survived the war and prospered as a salvager. But as he stood there enjoying his success, something unexpected happened. A voice spoke from hidden speakers throughout the chamber. Warning. Unauthorized personnel detected. Please identify yourself. Marcus spun around, his hand instinctively reaching for the pistol on his belt. The voice was artificial, clearly a computer, but it sounded more sophisticated than any station AI he had ever encountered. I'm Marcus Chun, he said aloud. Independent salvage operator. This station was abandoned. Negative. This station was placed in protective hibernation. Please state your authorization code. Marcus thought quickly. I don't have an authorization code. I'm here under standard salvage rights. The station has been derelict for over 20 years. There was a long pause. Then the voice spoke again, and this time it sounded almost curious. You have restored primary power systems. This was not expected. Most organic beings lack the persistence to complete such complex repairs without proper documentation. I'm human, Marcus said, as if that explained everything. In his experience, it usually did. Another pause. Interesting. Please proceed to the Central Command Center. We need to talk. Marcus followed the lighted pathway that appeared on the floor, leading him through corridors he hadn't explored yet. The station was much larger than he had first thought. It took him 20 minutes of walking to reach the Central Command Center, and he passed through at least 6 security checkpoints along the way. Each one scanned him but allowed him to pass. The command center was impressive. It was a circular room with dozens of workstations arranged in concentric rings around a central holographic display area. The technology was clearly advanced, showing design elements he recognized from human, Zephyrian, and several other species he couldn't identify. Please stand in the center circle, the voice said. Marcus walked to the indicated spot and looked around. So who are you? The station's AI. I am Harmony. I was created to coordinate and protect this facility and its mission. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, filling the room with its oddly musical tone. What mission? I cannot tell you that. You lack proper authorization. Marcus sat down on the floor, crossing his legs. It was an old trick he had learned in the military. When dealing with difficult computer systems, sometimes acting casual helped break through their programming. While Harmony, I've got nowhere else to be. My ship is docked here, and I've invested 3 days getting this place powered up. So we can sit here and stare at each other, or you can explain what's going on. There was a long silence. Then Harmony said, You are unlike the other organics who have attempted to board this station. How many others? 17 groups over the past 2 decades. All abandoned their efforts within hours. Some fled when they encountered the security systems. Others left when they realized the complexity of the repairs required. Marcus nodded. But I didn't. No. You approached each problem systematically. You showed remarkable persistence in restoring systems that most beings would consider beyond repair. Your methods are unconventional, but effective. It's called being stubborn. Humans are good at that. Harmony made a sound that might have been laughter. I am beginning to understand. You wish to know about this station's true purpose. I want to know why someone went to so much trouble to make it look destroyed while keeping it repairable. And I want to know why you're here, guarding it. The holographic display in the center of the room activated, showing a three-dimensional map of the local star systems. Red markers appeared at several locations, indicating something significant. This station was built in secret 24 years ago, Harmony said. It served as a meeting place for representatives from 3 different species. Humans, Zephyrians, and who else? Nethics and Voidborn. Marcus whistled. The Nethics were isolationists who rarely spoke to anyone outside their own systems. The Voidborn were even more mysterious, living in the dark spaces between stars. For all 4 species to meet in one place was almost unthinkable. Why would they work together? They discovered a common threat, something that would endanger all inhabited systems in this galaxy. The holographic display changed, showing long-range sensor data. Marcus saw patterns that looked like ship movements, but on a scale that made no sense. The formations were too large, covering distances that would take normal ships years to cross. What am I looking at? An invasion fleet from outside this galaxy. Our combined intelligence gathering detected their approach approximately 25 years ago. They will arrive in this galaxy within the next 6 months. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. That's not much time. No, it is not. The alliance formed here developed plans to defend against this threat, but their cooperation was discovered by their respective governments. The political consequences were severe. So they destroyed the station? They ordered it destroyed, but the participants could not bring themselves to eliminate their work entirely. They sabotaged the station to appear destroyed while preserving the essential data and systems. Marcus stood up and paced around the central display. So the information is still here? The defense plans? Yes, but they are incomplete. The alliance was destroyed before they could finish their work. And the political situation has worsened since then. The species involved are now more hostile to each other than they were before the alliance existed. Show me what they were working on. Harmony hesitated. You still lack proper authorization. I'm the only one who's bothered to fix this place in 20 years. I'm the only one who's gotten this far. And if what you're telling me is true, then in 6 months none of our authorization codes are going to matter because we'll all be dead. The AI was quiet for several minutes. Marcus could almost sense it thinking, weighing options against its programming. Finally, Harmony said, "You make a compelling argument." Very well. New displays appeared around the room, showing technical diagrams and tactical plans. Marcus recognized some of the technology, but much of it was beyond anything he had seen before. The scale of the defensive preparations was staggering. They were planning to build a combined fleet, Harmony explained. Each species would contribute their unique technologies and capabilities. Humans would provide tactical flexibility and adaptability. Zephyrians would contribute their powerful weapon systems. Nethics would supply advanced defensive technologies. Voidborn would provide stealth and mobility capabilities. Marcus studied the plans. His military experience helped him understand the tactical concepts, even if the technology was beyond him. This could work, he said slowly. But you'd need perfect coordination between all 4 species. And you'd need them to trust each other completely. Yes, that was the primary challenge then, and it remains so now. Marcus continued studying the displays. As he did, he began to notice problems with the plans. Gaps where different technological systems didn't quite mesh together. Communication protocols that wouldn't work between different species. Tactical doctrines that contradicted each other. They never solved the integration problems, he said. Correct. They ran out of time before they could address those issues. Marcus sat back down, thinking hard. What happens if I continue their work? You would need access to representatives from all 4 species. You would need them to overcome decades of political hostility. And you would need to solve technical challenges that defeated some of the finest minds in the galaxy. So basically impossible. That would be the logical conclusion. Marcus smiled grimly. Good thing I'm not very logical. He stood up and looked around the command center. Harmony, I'm going to need complete access to all the station systems. And I'm going to need you to help me figure out how to contact the right people. Marcus Chun, what you are proposing is extremely dangerous. If the wrong people learn about this station and its contents, the political consequences could be catastrophic. If we do nothing, everyone dies in 6 months anyway. That seems like a bigger problem. Harmony was silent again. Then, you are either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. That's what makes humans useful in impossible situations. Marcus spent the next 5 days deep in the station's computer systems, with Harmony guiding him through layers of security and encrypted files. What he found made him understand why the 4 species had been willing to risk everything to work together. The threat from outside the galaxy wasn't just an invasion. It was extermination. Show me the long-range sensor data again, Marcus said, standing before the main holographic display. The image that appeared made his stomach clench. The approaching fleet wasn't made up of ships in any recognizable sense. Instead, massive structures moved through the void between galaxies, each one the size of a small moon. They consumed everything in their path, breaking down planets and stars to fuel their continued advance. We call them the Devourers, Harmony explained. The name was chosen by the Nethic representative. Their technology appears to be entirely biological, designed to consume and convert all matter they encounter. Marcus watched the projected path of the invasion. How long until they reach inhabited systems? Based on current speed and trajectory, the first contact will occur in approximately 5 months and 12 days. The outer colonies will be reached first, followed by the core systems of all 4 species within 2 years. 2 years to consume everything. Correct. The Alliance calculated that conventional military resistance would delay them by perhaps 6 months at most. Their technology is too advanced, and their numbers are overwhelming. Marcus studied the defensive plans the Alliance had developed. They weren't based on fighting the Devourers directly. Instead, they focused on creating a barrier that would prevent the invaders from processing the matter they consumed. Explain this barrier concept to me. Harmony highlighted specific sections of the technical plans. The Devourers appear to break down matter using a quantum field effect. The Alliance discovered that this effect could be disrupted by generating an interference pattern using multiple, different energy signatures simultaneously. Like jamming a radio signal. A crude but accurate analogy. However, creating this interference pattern requires the combined technologies of all 4 species. Human energy projection systems, Zephyrian power cores, Nethic field generators, and void-borne quantum manipulators. Marcus walked around the display, studying it from different angles. What happens if one species doesn't participate? The pattern becomes unstable and collapses within hours. All 4 technological components are essential. So we need perfect cooperation? Yes, and perfect timing. The barrier must be activated simultaneously at multiple points around the galaxy's perimeter. Any delay or coordination failure will create gaps the devourers can exploit. Marcus sat down and rubbed his eyes. The scope of what the Alliance had been planning was staggering. Not just a military alliance, but the complete integration of 4 different technological and tactical doctrines into a single coordinated defense. Show me the political situation when the Alliance was discovered. New displays appeared, showing communication intercepts and intelligence reports. Marcus read through them, his understanding of the situation growing clearer and worse with each document. The Alliance had been exposed by intelligence agents from all 4 governments. When the secret meetings were discovered, each species had accused the others of attempting to create a military advantage through illegal cooperation. Trust had collapsed completely. The humans accused the Zephyrians of trying to steal defensive technology, Marcus read aloud. The Zephyrians accused the humans of planning a surprise attack. The Nethics withdrew from all diplomatic contact. The Voidborn disappeared back into deep space. The current political situation is even worse, Harmony said. Border skirmishes between human and Zephyrian forces have increased. The Nethics have declared their systems off-limits to all outsiders. Recent intelligence suggests the Voidborn are preparing for some kind of major action, though their intentions are unknown. Marcus leaned back in his chair. So in 6 months, an unstoppable invasion force is going to arrive, and the only people who can stop it hate each other more than ever. That is an accurate summary. What about the people who were actually here? The Alliance members? Harmony brought up personnel files. Marcus saw faces from all 4 species, along with their current status. Most were arrested or demoted by their governments. Several died under suspicious circumstances. The survivors have been reassigned to positions where they cannot easily communicate with each other or pursue their previous work. Marcus studied the faces. These were scientists, military officers, and diplomats who had risked everything to save the galaxy. Now they were scattered and powerless. But they're still alive. Most of them. Yes, though they are closely monitored by their respective intelligence services. Marcus stood up and began pacing again. It was a habit from his military days, helping him think through complex problems. What would happen if someone tried to contact them? Any attempt to reassemble the Alliance would be considered an act of treason by all 4 governments. The political response would be severe. What about an outside party? Someone not officially connected to any government? Harmony paused. That approach had not been considered. The Alliance members all held official positions within their respective hierarchies. Marcus smiled for the first time in days. But I don't. You are suggesting that you could coordinate a new alliance as an independent operator. I'm suggesting that maybe the old approach was wrong. All those official channels and government approvals. Maybe what we need is someone who can work outside the system. He pointed at the technical displays. These plans are good, but they're incomplete. Look at the integration problems. The different species were trying to make their technologies work together, but they were thinking like bureaucrats. Everything had to be official and approved and documented. What alternative do you propose? Marcus grinned. I propose we stop trying to make the governments cooperate and start making the technologies cooperate. Find ways to build the barrier system using whatever resources we can get, however we can get them. He walked to the central display and began manipulating the technical diagrams. His understanding was limited, but his military experience with improvised solutions was extensive. Look at this power coupling system. The Alliance was trying to create a perfect interface between human and Zephyrian energy systems. But what if we don't need perfect? What if we just need functional? As he worked, Marcus began to see possibilities the Alliance had missed. ways to simplify the integration, methods for building redundancy into the system so that minor failures wouldn't cause complete collapse. Your approach is unorthodox, Harmony said after watching him work for several hours. Unorthodox is what humans do best. I am beginning to understand why the Alliance members believed human participation was essential. Marcus looked up from the displays. What do you mean? The other species approached this problem as a theoretical exercise. Perfect coordination, perfect technology, perfect timing. But you approach it as a practical challenge to be solved with available resources. That's what war teaches you. Perfect solutions get you killed. Working solutions keep you alive. He turned back to the plans, but his mind was already moving beyond technical problems to practical ones. How to contact the surviving Alliance members. How to acquire the necessary technology without official approval. How to coordinate 4 different species when their governments wanted nothing to do with each other. Harmony, I'm going to need detailed information about the current status of every Alliance member. Locations, security situations, communication methods. Everything. Such information could be used to endanger those individuals. If I'm wrong about this, they're all dead in 6 months anyway. If I'm right, they're the only hope we have. Harmony considered this. Very well. I will compile the requested information. Marcus nodded and continued working on the technical plans. As he did, he felt the familiar sensation he remembered from his military days. The moment when an impossible mission started to look merely very difficult, it was a good feeling. Marcus was deep in the station's engineering section, modifying a power coupling system when Harmony's voice echoed through the corridors. Marcus-chan, we have a problem. 3 Zephyrian patrol ships have just dropped out of hyperspace and are approaching the station. Marcus set down his tools and wiped his hands on his coveralls. How long before they get here? Approximately 18 minutes at current approach speed. Any idea what they want? Unknown. They are broadcasting standard identification requests, demanding that all personnel aboard the station surrender immediately for questioning about illegal salvage operations. Marcus grabbed his toolkit and headed toward the command center. As he walked, his mind raced through possibilities. The Zephyrians might have detected the power signatures from his repairs. Or maybe someone had reported seeing his ship docked here. Can we convince them this is just a routine salvage job? Unlikely. The station's power signature is now too strong to be explained by simple repairs. And the security systems are actively scanning their ships. Marcus reached the command center and looked at the tactical display. 3 ships in standard patrol formation, closing steadily on the station's position. Not a major threat, but definitely a complication he didn't need. Options? We could shut down all systems and attempt to convince them the station is truly abandoned. However, this would require several hours to complete properly, which we don't have. What else? The station's defensive systems are operational. We could discourage their approach. Marcus shook his head. Last thing I want is to start shooting at people. That just proves we have something to hide. He studied the tactical display, thinking through alternatives. Then he noticed something odd about the Zephyrian formation. Harmony, are they maintaining standard patrol distances? No. They are flying closer together than normal protocols would suggest. Before Marcus could ask what that meant, new alerts began sounding throughout the command center. Additional contacts detected. 4 Nethic vessels approaching from a different vector. Marcus stared at the display. Now he had 7 ships approaching from 2 different directions. The situation was getting complicated fast. Let me guess, he said. The Nethics are also demanding that I surrender for questioning. Correct. They claim the station contains technology stolen from their territory. Marcus walked around the central display, studying the approaching ships. Both groups were maintaining their distance from each other, but they were clearly aware of each other's presence. How long before they both get here? The Zephyrians will arrive first, followed by the Nethics approximately 4 minutes later. Marcus was about to respond when the alert sounded again. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," he muttered. 3 additional contacts detected. Configuration suggests void-born vessels. Let me guess. They want to talk to me too. Yes, they claim the station houses sacred artifacts that belong to their people. Marcus sat down heavily in the command chair. 3 different species, all converging on his location, all demanding that he surrender and answer questions. And none of them were likely to be happy about the presence of the others. Harmony, what are the chances this is just a coincidence? Extremely small. It appears that our recent activities have attracted more attention than anticipated. Marcus studied the tactical situation. The 3 groups of ships were positioning themselves in a rough triangle around the station, with each group maintaining careful distance from the others. Nobody wanted to be the first to open fire, but nobody was backing down either. Can I communicate with all 3 groups simultaneously? Yes, I can establish a multi-frequency communication link. Do it. A moment later, Marcus was looking at 3 different screens showing representatives from each species. The Zephyrian was a military officer with the characteristic ridge markings of his people. The Nethic was obviously a scientist, her pale features showing the calm expression typical of her species. The Voidborn representative was harder to read, his dark features partially hidden by the environmental suit his people required in standard atmosphere. "Gentleman, lady," Marcus said. "I'm Marcus Chun, independent salvage operator. I assume you're all here about the same thing." The Zephyrian spoke first. "Human Chun, you are operating illegally in contested space. This station has been declared a protected archaeological site by the Zephyrian Defense Council." "Actually," the Nethic said calmly, "this station was constructed using technology stolen from Nethic research facilities. It falls under our jurisdiction according to established salvage law." The Voidborn's voice was barely audible through his suit's translator. "This place holds artifacts sacred to our people. It must be returned to us immediately." Marcus held up his hands. "Okay, let's all take a step back here. How about you explain to me what's so important about one abandoned research station?" The 3 representatives looked at each other with obvious suspicion. None of them wanted to reveal their true interest while the others were listening. "I thought so," Marcus said. "You all know exactly what this place is. And you all know why you really want it back." He leaned forward in his chair. "Here's what I think. 23 years ago, your people worked together on something important. Something that your governments later decided was too dangerous or too politically sensitive to continue. So they shut it down and tried to make everyone forget it ever happened." The silence from all 3 screens told Marcus he was right. "The problem is, the thing you were working on isn't finished. And now time is running out." "Human," the Zephyrian said carefully, "you are discussing matters beyond your understanding." "Am I?" Marcus stood up and activated the main holographic display. The image of the approaching Devourer fleet appeared in the center of the command center, visible to all 3 ships through the communication link. The reaction was immediate. All 3 representatives leaned forward, studying the display with obvious recognition. "You know what this is," Marcus said. "You know when they're going to get here. And you know that separately, none of your species can stop them." The Nethic scientist spoke first. "Where did you obtain this data?" "From the station's computer systems. The same systems that contain the defense plans your people developed. The plans that might actually work if you could stop pointing weapons at each other long enough to implement them." The Voidborn representative made a gesture that Marcus didn't understand but which seemed to indicate agreement. "The Political situation has changed since the alliance, the Zephian officer said. Cooperation is no longer possible. Marcus laughed. Officer, in 4 months and 28 days, politics won't matter anymore, because there won't be any politicians left to argue with. He manipulated the display to show the projected timeline of the Devourer advance. Look at this. Really, look at it. First contact in less than 5 months. Complete galactic consumption within 2 years. You think your border disputes are going to matter when these things start eating your home worlds? Marcus could see the 3 representatives processing what he was showing them. They knew the threat was real. They had known it for 23 years. Even if we accepted your assessment, the Nethic said carefully, the technological challenges remain unsolved. Actually, I think I've figured out some solutions to those problems. Marcus spent the next hour walking them through his modifications to the original defense plans. He showed them how simplified integration protocols could work around the compatibility issues that had stumped the original alliance. He demonstrated redundancy systems that could compensate for coordination failures. As he talked, he could see understanding growing in their faces. And something else. Hope? This could work, the Zephyrian officer said slowly. But it would require resources and personnel that we cannot officially provide. The Nethic added. Then don't do it officially, Marcus said. Do it because it needs doing. The 3 representatives looked at each other across the communication link. Marcus could see them weighing options, calculating risks and benefits. Finally, the Voidborn spoke. What do you propose? Marcus looked at the 3 faces on his screens and made a decision that would either save the galaxy or get him killed. I'm transmitting the complete Alliance research data to all 3 of your ships. Simultaneously, he said, his fingers moving over the control panel. Every technical specification, every tactical plan, every piece of information your people worked together to develop. Human Chun, the Zephyrian officer said sharply. That data is classified at the highest levels by all our governments. Not anymore, it isn't. Marcus finished the transmission and leaned back in his chair. Now you all have the same information. You can either use it to save everyone, or you can spend the next 5 months arguing about who owns what while the galaxy gets eaten. The Voidborn representative studied something on his ship's displays. The data appears complete. The quantum manipulation protocols are exactly as we left them. The field generation matrices are intact as well, the Nethic scientist added. Though these modifications you have made are unexpected. Marcus stood up and walked to the holographic display. I've been working on this for 2 weeks straight. The original alliance was trying to create perfect integration between your technologies. But perfect doesn't exist in the real world. What exists is functional, adaptable, and maintainable. He highlighted specific sections of his modified plans. Look at the power coupling systems. Instead of one perfect interface, I've designed 6 different backup methods. If the primary connection fails, the system automatically switches to the next option. Redundancy. The Zephyrian officer nodded. Military doctrine. Exactly. And look at the communication protocols. The original alliance planned for perfect coordination across dozens of light years. I've redesigned it for autonomous operation with periodic synchronization. Each system can function independently while contributing to the overall defense network. The 3 representatives spent several minutes reviewing his changes. Marcus could see them beginning to understand how his practical approach could solve problems that had defeated their theoretical models. These modifications would require significant resources to implement, the Nethic said. How significant? Each species would need to contribute approximately 30% of their available fleet assets. and we would need to begin construction immediately. Marcus nodded. What about personnel? Do the original Alliance members still have the necessary expertise? Most are still alive, the Voidborn said quietly, though they have been reassigned to positions where they cannot pursue this work. Then it's time to get them back together. Over the next hour, Marcus outlined his plan. Not an official alliance between governments, but an informal cooperation between individuals who understood what was at stake. The original Alliance members would be quietly reassigned to positions where they could contribute to the project. Resources would be diverted from routine operations without official authorization. The construction work would be done at remote locations, away from government oversight. You are proposing that we operate outside our respective chains of command, the Zephyrian officer said. I'm proposing that we save the galaxy. The chain of command can sort itself out afterward. Marcus could see them wrestling with the implications. What he was suggesting bordered on treason by the standards of all three governments. But the alternative was extinction. There's another problem, the Nethic scientist said. The barrier system requires precise timing across multiple star systems. Even with your modifications, the coordination requirements are enormous. Marcus smiled. That's where I come in? This station will serve as the central coordination point. I'll handle the timing and integration issues. You? The Voidborn sounded skeptical. No offense intended, but you are one human with limited technological expertise. I'm one human who doesn't care about political boundaries or species differences. I'm stubborn enough to keep working on this until it's done right. Marcus activated another display, showing his analysis of the coordination requirements. I've broken down the timing issues into manageable segments. Instead of trying to synchronize everything simultaneously, we sequence the activation in waves. Each wave provides backup for the others, and the overall system becomes stable even if individual components fail. As he explained his approach, Marcus could see understanding dawning in their faces. He wasn't trying to improve on their technology. He was finding ways to make their technology work in the real world, with real limitations and real problems. This could actually work, the Zephyrian officer said slowly, but it will require trust, the Nethic added. Trust that has been broken between our peoples. Then don't trust each other, Marcus said. Trust me. I'll be the central coordination point. I'll make sure everyone follows through on their commitments. The three representatives looked at each other across the communication link. Marcus could see them making the same calculation he had made. The risks were enormous, but the alternative was unthinkable. Human Chun, the Voidborn said finally. You are either very brave or very foolish. I get that a lot. We will need time to contact our people and arrange for the necessary resources. You have 2 weeks, Marcus said. After that, we start construction whether everyone is ready or not. Over the following weeks, Kepler's Rest was transformed from an abandoned station into the coordination center for the most ambitious military project in galactic history. The original Alliance members began arriving, officially reassigned to routine duties that happened to bring them to remote locations where they could contribute to the project. Marcus found himself serving as translator, mediator, and coordinator between species that had barely spoken to each other in over 20 years. His military experience with multinational operations proved invaluable, but more important was his ability to focus on practical problems rather than political concerns. When the Zephyrian and Nethic engineering teams couldn't agree on power coupling specifications, Marcus locked them in a room together with the requirement that they solve the problem or miss dinner. When communication protocols broke down between different species, he created simplified backup systems that anyone could operate. The construction work proceeded at dozens of locations throughout the galaxy, with each team working on components that would eventually be integrated into the barrier system. Marcus coordinated everything from the station, tracking progress and solving problems as they arose. 3 months after the project began, they received confirmation of the approaching threat. Long-range sensors detected the first Devourer scouts entering the galaxy's outer rim. Time to test the system, Marcus announced to the assembled team leaders. The first activation was far from perfect. 2 power coupling failures resulted in temporary gaps in the barrier. Communication delays caused synchronization problems that took hours to resolve. But the basic system worked, creating a quantum interference field that stretched across several star systems. "It's holding," the Nethic scientist reported. "Field strength is approximately 60% of theoretical maximum, but it appears stable." Marcus studied the readouts from around the galaxy. "Good enough for a test run. Let's work on the problems we identified and try again tomorrow." For the next month, they refined and improved the system. Marcus insisted on daily activation tests, pushing the equipment and procedures to their limits. His relentless focus on practical functionality, rather than theoretical perfection, drove the engineering teams to find solutions they had thought impossible. When the main Devourer fleet arrived, the galaxy was ready. The barrier activated across a network of over 300 star systems, creating an interference field that disrupted the invaders' matter conversion technology. The massive Devourer ships found themselves unable to process the matter they consumed, leaving them stranded and vulnerable to conventional attacks. The battle lasted 3 days. Combined fleets from all 4 species, operating under Marcus's coordination from Kepler's Rest, systematically destroyed or drove off the invading force. When the last Devourer ship fled back into intergalactic space, Marcus collapsed into his command chair and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. "Well," he said to Harmony, "that was interesting." "Marcus Chun," the AI replied, "you have accomplished something that most beings would consider impossible." "I had help." "Yes, from people who learned to trust each other again because they trusted you." First, Marcus looked around the command center, now filled with representatives from 4 different species working together as if the past 20 years of hostility had never happened. "Think it will last?" "Unknown. Political pressures will resume once the immediate crisis is over. But you have demonstrated that cooperation is possible. That may be enough." Marcus nodded and stood up. Through the observation ports, he could see ships from all 4 species docked at the station. For the first time in decades, they were flying together rather than apart. It wasn't perfect,